Across the Fence, homegrown energy made in Vermont. We'll learn about the use of grasses as a renewable energy source and meet the researcher and the landowner who are making it possible. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. For the past 6 years, a University of Vermont Extension scientist has been collaborating with a Vermont landowner to research whether perennial grasses can be used for biomass energy. They now have the answer. To find out, I'm joined by the scientist and the landowner. Professor Sid Bosworth is an agronomy specialist with UVM Extension, and John Abele is the owner of Meach, Cove Farms in Shelburne. Thanks so much for being with me today. Let's go back 6 years to the beginning of this research, Sid, and why you were interested in the potential for grass as an energy source.
Sure, Judy. So first, if we look at Vermont's comprehensive energy plan, there's a goal that 90% of our energy needs will be met by renewable sources by 2050, and that's including for electricity, transportation, and heating. So biomass is going to be, I think, an important part of that contribution. And even though in Vermont wood is our major biomass source, we think grasses can play a role as well in that contribution. So about 6 years ago, UVM Extension started a series of trials collaborating with Meach Cove Farm and other farms and institutions to test the feasibility of some grasses that might fit this type of purpose.
So John, as the owner of Meach Cove Farms, what's been your interest in this project?
Well, I'm an experimenter. I've long been fascinated by how you can do things better. I'm also on the board of the Rocky Mount Institute that actually does research and develops plans to how to get us off fossil fuel by 2050.
And so it takes a while to do this kind of research, and this particular project requires several growing seasons. So during the project, Across the Fence made a few visits to Meach Cove Farm. Rebecca Gollin has more.
There's a new trend in energy that's growing in Vermont.
The grass is hayed like typical hay. It's in a round bale form. It'll be chopped into smaller particles and then densified into what we call these pucks, these briquette pucks. And then that will be in a form that can be burned in a boiler.
University of Vermont Extension researcher Sid Bosworth has been studying the feasibility of using grass as fuel for years. Here at Meach Cove Farm in Shelburne, Bosworth works with the landowner and the farm manager to create a reliable source of fuel for the farm. He has conducted experiments on how different varieties grow and how they burn when processed.
I think we're at a point where we know we can grow these grasses. We have a good handle on their yield and economics to grow them. Is it going to be profitable or not for a landowner to grow these? We have a handle on how to process them for burning. And now it looks like we have, and I think this has been the big bottleneck, we now have possible systems for burning them at least a smaller intermediate industrial size, something that could handle, a building, a church or an office building or a shop area.
What Bosworth and his research partners have now that they didn't have before is a boiler capable of burning the grass in a consistent way.
One of the challenges with burning a biomass like a grass species is that depending on the mineral content, depending on the density of the pellet or the puck that you're using, and depending on the boiler you're using, you can get mixed results when they burn.
There are a number of factors that can influence how the grass burns, from nutrient content and density of the biomass to the boiler itself. Even the temperature at which it's burned can make a big difference.
So another advantage of switchgrass is that it doesn't require as many nutrients.
These test plots are looking at how timing the harvest of switchgrass can affect its quality as fuel.
We're looking at a field of switchgrass, and this switchgrass was actually mowed back in the fall. The idea is that we mow it At that time, it stays in the windrow through the winter, and then it's harvested for hay in April or May.
The grass is left in the field through the winter to deplete its mineral content.
It's going to get rained on, and in the winter, snowfall. Our idea is actually counter to making good quality hay for livestock. We're trying to leach the nutrients out of this hay. That's better for burning quality.
Here in New England, we burn wood. That's what we understand. And so part of what our company does is try to introduce and say, let's burn biomass. Biomass is wood, it can be grass, we can densify anything. Why not have your fuel source in the backyard, so to speak?
Adam Dancher is a partner at Renewable Energy Resources, another collaborator in this project. Their role is turning the grass into pellets, or larger, disc-shaped pucks that are ready to be burned.
These here are the form factors that we make. This is a 2-inch briquette or a puck. These can be made softer and weigh less. They can be made to be hard. So we can manipulate the material, the end product, to customize to the customer. The process is what we call field to flue.
One aspect of the project is to create results that can be replicated easily in other places. So Dancher and his partners try not to use specialized machines.
We use farm equipment because farm equipment is easy to get. Farming is done everywhere. The only specialty piece of machinery is the one behind me, which is the densifier. This is a machine that we had built about 5 years ago. And what it does is take chopped grass at 3 pounds a cubic foot chop to 35 pounds a cubic foot densified. And so we can take a large bale and turn it into something very small, and then that gets transported into the boiler.
The group researched boilers extensively before making their choice. They spent months testing and calibrating the machine.
We had the first part of the winter to run it on wood pellets, and since mid-February we've been running the combustion testing with the various grasses that you've seen growing in the field. We are taking emission samples. We'll also be doing some lab sampling to try to make comparisons between the efficiencies and the combustion data of these grasses in these forms with wood, premium wood pellets as our control.
Tests conducted with the boiler have confirmed that some grasses don't burn as efficiently as wood, and some produce more emissions than a standard wood pellet. But the potential is there. While Bosworth works to deplete grasses of their nutrient load before they reach the boiler, Davis has been adjusting the boiler to work well with the various characteristics of the grasses.
The other thing that's kind of unique about this particular boiler is because it has a processor not unlike a smartphone, it can do a lot of the adjusting for me, and we're learning how to help it do that more efficiently to get better results on the emissions. And it's just going to take some time. But the initial data so far and the initial performance is that we can heat this building with these grasses, and they do burn very similar to wood, and they burn with enough intensity that this is for the first time we know that we can do it.
The next step of the project is to do a longer-term, continuous run of the grasses over the winter to see how they hold up as a primary heat source and how well the boiler handles them.
We're hopeful that as we gain this better understanding of this, that we will be able to utilize this resource in Vermont.
After months in the field, the grass may not be greener at Meach Cove Farm, but researchers are hoping that it keeps things nice and warm through a Vermont winter. It's energy from the land, and if it proves to be up to the job, it could soon be a growing trend in energy that's grown right here in Vermont. In Shelburne, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Well, Well, that's amazing. Now, John, I understand that you demonstrated the technology and boiler at a recent open house?
We did indeed. In fact, it was a lot of fun to see a variety of people come through, and it's sharing information. We're learning a lot. A lot of the people we're visiting are also researchers, and it's quite a nice community that is sharing information on the grass energy.
So, Sid, talk a little bit about the grass of choice, which is switchgrass.
Well, that seems to be a nice grass that works. It's actually a native grass, one of our tall grass prairie grasses. And we evaluated several varieties. So it's still important, you know, one reason we did this study was to see if we had adapted species. It is a warm season grass, so its main growth is during the summer, much like corn, except it's a perennial. And I've seen stands last up to 20 years if managed properly.
Oh, no kidding. Well, that's handy.
Yes.
Now, was there any concern about an invasive species?
That's certainly something we wanted to look at. Not all the grasses we had in the trial were native. And none of the grasses we had would pose any threat of either like creeping out of the plots or becoming an invasive as far as causing any serious threat to our environment or to wetlands or anything like that.
Well, in the video we saw a boiler system for a large shop on a farm. What about for home use? Is this going to be adaptable for home use?
At this point, I would say not yet, or no. The fuel characteristics are really different. The pellet stoves that are designed for home are for wood or corn. There's corn stoves. And you know, the manufacturers would not warranty this product at this time. And that's why, you know, Meach Cove is looking at a special boiler to handle this.
And so, John, what's next for Meach Cove Farms? I mean, exploring energy options is something that's ongoing.
Absolutely. We do have a solar farm, but in fact, solar energy is changing literally daily. The panels are getting more efficient. We do not have storage outside of the grid, but batteries are getting better and better. And we may experiment with that, which would be another way of making them more available to more people more efficiently in Vermont.
Why do you think it's important to conduct these kinds of experiments and to bring people together to collaborate?
Well, number one, you're likely to get more ideas and better ideas. And it's efficient in itself as a way of solving problems. But also it's a lot of fun, frankly, just the relationships that you build with a real variety of people from different needs. And because they have these different backgrounds, they're likely to come up with ideas that you couldn't have thought of because they have a different application.
So it's kind of a mad scientist mixing people together.
You can get assumed to be thinking that way, but I think it's, you know, fun and creative science.
So Sid, is there the next step for UVM extension research?
Well, presently we've completed the grass trials, and we've got a lot of good data that can be used, you know, in the future for anyone trying to grow these grasses. I think what Meach Cove is doing with the boiler evaluation is really important. Chris Callahan, Extension Ag Engineer, is working with Meach Cove on doing some emissions testing of that boiler system. A lot of my work was funded through the Department of Energy, through the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund, and they have provided some resources to add another boiler down in Rutland, so for more demonstration and testing. So I'd say this is the next phase, is really fine-tuning our utilization of these grasses.
Well, if you'd like to learn more about the Meach Cove Farms and the work that's being taken place there, you can check the website. It's meachcovefarms.com. That's meachcovefarms.com. And to learn more about the UVM Grass Energy Project, you can check Sid's website in the Plant and Soil Science Department. Go to pss.uvm.edu/grassenergy. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.